welcome to a new Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers, and today we have our very special guest who's a co-author of mine and a visionary as well of a new paradigm of education, which is a vision and mission that we've created for humanity. Dr. Janet has a wealth of knowledge around education, and I'd like to just start by you introducing yourself so we can see what we can offer our audience today. So good to see you again.
Oh, it's been a long time, and it's always my pleasure to show up here and to be with you and to contribute to this new paradigm of education that for me has been a vision for 40 years. So way back when I was young, like Monique, had these beautiful visions of education and change and growing and learning in leadership in new ways. And they're wonderfully, amazingly just coming about today. So I think it takes that long to plant seeds sometimes. And part of what I wanted to talk about was nature. And maybe it's fitting to start with that seed that we're planting. And we may not always see the results, see the fruit and the benefits of the changes that we make by planting these seeds. Yet in Native American teaching, we hear the traditional viewpoint and philosophy that everything we do today is a seed that we plant for 7 generations to come. So it's sort of a faith and a mystery, that we're planting these seeds with the faith that something good will ripple out into the world, the universe, and we may not be and probably won't be around to see it. Yet the joy in each step of that process of planting the seed and allowing it to mature and to nurture it during those times of apparently, nothing happening, or that place of the fertile void, I guess.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll go into your backstory in a moment because you have done so much in education. I really love how you're inspiring us to even now step into this next generation or generations. And what I've seen so far through our mission of this new paradigm is there's just so many people that are awake and wanting to change. And in our group posting, we need holistic education, we need heart-led education. And I've just seen so many projects and so many visionaries. So it feels like we are at this kind of dawning of this new paradigm. And it's people like yourselves, as you're saying, and not just you, but other visionaries and other people and other like energetics that has all played a part in all of this. Maybe did you want to share a bit about your
Yeah.
backstory? Because you have a really interesting backstory. Maybe people who haven't yet connected with you might like to know that around you being.
Well, to, what were you saying?
No, just go for it.
Oh yeah, it depends on how far back we're going. And yeah, all the way back, well, there's a little kitty behind me there. And I think my dog is there too, so they like to join in. When they feel this energy, they kind of cluster around like so many animals do. And that's, also that part of nature. So when Monique is talking about the backstory, um, I think, it goes back to my own time as a teacher on the Navajo Indian Reservation
Hmm.
and also on the Nahajo and Hopi Reservation. So that's where I got into this idea of the medicine wheel, coming full circle, having that connection, mitakuyasin, the connection to all of life, the creatures that are around us, the air that we breathe, coming more into that fullness and wholeness on the medicine wheel of life. So when I then had my own children, I really wanted them raised in a particular way. And even back then, I was very leery of the public school system. I did not want them to go to public school. So I began the homeschooling movement. And recently I've moved back to Arizona, and Arizona is where this whole thing started for
Oh,
me
wow.
with the tribes. Yeah, so I've come full circle on that medicine wheel too, being away for 18 years and then coming back to what really feels like home to me. So as soon as I kind of stepped foot on this native indigenous land, was like everything just kind of aligned and settled in. And there's such a feeling of I'm home, I'm back, I'm in this place where so many of my journeys began, so many of my early teachings. And oh, totally related to nature. Even if I go back to the story before my two sons were born, I was told by the medical practice that I would not be able to have children. So I was very sad and kind of in tears about that, and talked to my neighbor who was a Hopi basket weaver. And she just shook her head. She said, no, no, you don't need to own that. You don't need to claim that. That's not true. And she stood up, she took her apron off, she put her basketry down, and she said, drive me down to the lower village. So it was this lower village of a little town called Moenkopi, and she introduced me to the medicine woman. Her name was Effie, and she did not speak English, but she took me in a little room and laid me down on a cot and used a crystal, kind of like maybe similar to this, just a crystal, but it was the first time that I had ever seen or heard of a crystal. So I was back in the early 70s, and
Wow.
she diagnosed me with this crystal and gave me herbs accordingly to her diagnosis, and said, in 6 weeks, take this first half, and 6 weeks later, take the second half. And she gave me the directions for how to do that. And the first 6 weeks, when I went back, I was already pregnant. So I
Wow.
actually still have, that second packet. So it's just this whole immersion in the idea of nature and the connection to nature, and how the healing process begins and goes through its transitions, and that whole healing is an ongoing story. So when my son was born, and then my second son, she started to call them her Hopi babies. And from then on, I knew that I wanted them raised in a whole different paradigm, in a whole different way, with nature as the basis of what they're learning, and being able to have their own natural abilities um, channeled and reflected in whatever they're doing. So they're now, I'm sure, older than Monique, and I have a grandchild who's not being raised that way. And that is a little disheartening to me, but I trust that things change also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So whenever there were discipline problems, or, there weren't those kind of things. Like there weren't, oh, we're having trouble disciplining. It would just be go out into nature and explore and breathe and enjoy, and come back into that natural balance of who you are authentically, and learn from that reflection and sharing in nature, who you are, what your nature is.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love it. What your nature is in nature. It makes me also wonder because your background, you've got so much scholarly background as well. So I was just wondering, like you as the professor, like would you be able to kind of let parents know or people know like what are the benefits of nature for the brain or the emotions or the body? Like how is it helping our children? We know they enjoy it, but like how is it helping them?
Well, it's definitely releasing endorphins, and it brings that connection, it brings that alignment and that centering, and bringing one into a sense of balance. It is like meditation. It's like that whole process of, breathing in order to come to a place of center. And nature just has that because we're breathing in the clean air, hopefully as clean of air as we have access to. And we're releasing carbon dioxide. So we're coming more into our own wholeness, and it's balancing the brain chemistry. So we're actually releasing those endorphins and serotonins, and all the neurotransmitters become awakened and start firing and wiring and recreating. So we can always do that by going out into nature.
Yeah, sounds really beautiful. It sounds like something even families can do together rather than just with the children to heal, all the family traumas that there's been in the past and even now, because a lot of that I think also can impact on education for children as well. So,
It's so true because we are um, always affected by not only family trauma, but also that multi-generational trauma. And especially working with the Native children, they were subject to a lot of family trauma and multi-generational trauma passed down through their own cultural difficulties and challenges and abuses and traumas that they went through. So it that's actually what led me to pursue more advanced degrees, because when I was working with the children, I realized, the children are already there in their beauty and their uh, inquiry and their curiosity and that childlike mind. And then they go home to very difficult family lifestyles. And some of the children were going home to alcoholism. Some of the children were going home to abuse. And we know that that's prevalent in our cultures worldwide. So I was inspired then to pursue an advanced degree as a family therapist, thinking that, well, I'll work with the whole family then. And yes, create um, art therapy and nature therapy and different ways of being with the whole family to heal the whole family, because we know it's not just one child. Even if we say this is the problem child in the family, that's the child that's carrying the wounds of the
mm.
family. Yeah, so their acting out is generally the acting out of the whole family trauma.
Wow, I love that. I really love what you share on that, taking collective responsibility for that. It's really
Yeah.
powerful what you just shared. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you too, because you have so much wealth of knowledge, like all these kind of tools and hidden secrets within you. Could you share something that we could use, like in our home or in our education places, like an activity for children or for adults or whatever you feel inspired that could help us with nature or with healing or with whatever you feel inspired to share?
Sure. Well, I'm looking behind you and I
Yes,
see that dream catcher.
yes.
Yeah. So making things like that together, I know, okay. So I have this little one here, oh my gosh, that my son did when he was tiny, tiny young,
Oh,
and
wow.
just going out and finding a beautiful stick and decorating the stick. And then I taught them how to do a simple weaving. And I can't believe I actually still have those, but I moved it even from one location to another, and it's still here with me. So most of my things are that way. But going out into nature, say, as a family, and each person finding a stick that resonates to them, and then coming home and wrapping the stick with yarn or decorating the stick with ribbons or, any kind of arts and craft type thing. And there's a ceremony that's done that's called, um, it's a prayer stick ceremony. So you plant the stick into the land. You would go to a special place, and each person would, after they decorate their stick, plant it in the earth. And that stick is for some sort of particular intention, serves an intention. It would be a prayer for healing or a prayer for, coming into wholeness as a family. So each individual is contributing to that collective co-creation of healing for the family. And then you watch what happens for 7 days or the first 3 days, what on the third day. So you would go back and visit that stick, and all of you would sit together and share what comes to mind, like in a talk circle, and then go back on the seventh day after a week, and then again in 2 weeks. And another way that you can do it if you're near water, I know you're always near water,
Yes.
is to cast those sticks into the water
Oh,
and
wow.
allow the water to take them. So to create ritual is so important. It's so rich in our life that when we do that as a family and begin to co-create together, we're creating also a sense of belonging and a sense of the sacred.
Mm. That's really beautiful. I love that you can continue the process and go back and forth. And you could use that in schools. I'm sure you have as well, where you use it for
Yeah.
gratitude, or you kind of slightly alter it a little bit with the class, and you could make a class type of one. I'm just having this image of everybody in a circle together.
Now, I did that at a college course that I was teaching, and it's here in Arizona, not too far from where I live. It's called Embry-Riddle University, and it's world famous, where people come from all over to learn how to be pilots, or it's aviation oriented.
Wow.
And generally, in those days, most of the students were young men, and they were, very proper and very academic. And here's me coming in with all the yarn and the sticks and having them choose the stick. And, each color represents a certain chakra. The red is going to be your root chakra, or, you know, all the way up, or you can, make up your own meaning for the colors. And here they are all sitting on the floor in a circle, quietly wrapping their sticks. It was an amazing experience. And they were just awestruck by it. They were like, oh my gosh, we got so much meaning out of this sharing, and then, of course, open that up for sharing. But I think that you can do this with any age, and cross culture is a cross cultural activity because nature brings us all together. Nature is that base, that foundation, that blending point where it kind of balances everything out. So we all relate to each other at that level.
I love that you brought that into the universities and especially to this genre of people you're saying and that they really appreciated it. It just shows
They
how
do.
open everybody is now for this type of way of learning, and it doesn't need to be differentiated. It's just one other aspect of learning. When you think of a big learning wheel, it's another aspect to add in, isn't it? You know?
Yes, yes. So bringing in anything experiential whenever it can be added in just adds that extra dimension. And, we're all sensing, feeling beings, and we all have our different ways of learning, our different intelligence that is prominent for one, or maybe a blend, always a blend. And if we can reach then all those different methods and with different methods, reach all the different intelligences, the kinesthetic, the visual learner, the auditory learner, and just really combine it into a rich curriculum that's balanced. So we're always looking for that wholeness and that balance.
Yeah, 100%. I believe that
Mm.
wholeheartedly as well. Our sequel to our book, Janet, actually, that we made, which was this one was all about the inspiring for the next generation of change makers, which we've done. And then the next one is holistic education. So it's all about, body, mind, soul ascension and all the aspects of the earth, and it's all coming together. So it just feels like a beautiful sequel on from what we all started, where we started the revolution of change and we took action, and now we're kind of adding on to that in aspects. So what you've just shared is so perfect.
I'm so excited for that second book.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's 15 of us, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. It's made for all of you, everybody who's listening out there, and it's for all of us to step into our own visions. It's not our vision, it's your vision. It's the vision for everybody. So that's the
Yes.
inspiration of it. I also wanted to ask you something because you have a paper many years back where you link the chakras with Maslow. And I
Mhm.
think that that's really fascinating in terms of learning and even in terms of nature, because the chakras also link with nature. So would you be able to share like some inspiration around that? Because I found it fascinating every time I hear it, and I learn so much about how I can, learn in my own life as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and I even correlated the tree of life to Maslow's hierarchy with the chakras.
Oh, the tree of
And
life too.
if we,
Great.
yeah, so if the Torah, so if we think of ourselves as our own tree of life, and our root chakra is relating to Maslow, that place of security, that place where we connect foundationally and really root ourselves into the earth. And when that is in strength and harmony, then we come from a place of solidarity and stability. And then we can begin to express coming up into the sacral center, our creativity, our connection to others, our once we're stable, beginning to reach, beyond out into the world. So with Maslow, then it goes into the place of belonging. And I just see those blended into the also the Hara center or solar plexus, our healthy, stable ego self, our complete place of healthy ego, where our authenticity lies, and we radiate that yellow, that gold of the sun. So that's our warmth, our fire, and that's that place of love and belonging. And then we come to the heart, which is also in Maslow's, and the intimacy, the self love, self acceptance, and in our throat chakra, the way that we speak our truths, or connection to something greater, extending outward from this throat, being able to really speak our hearts and our minds and connect those into our third eye center, and then the higher center, our crown, our divine, or our self-actualization, if we put it in terms of Maslow. So that's just kind of a quick pick of that.
Yeah, and it links like all the different aspects of learning, like that you're sharing. So all the chakras is representing different aspects of our learning, and it's also linking with our brain aspects as well, isn't it? Like cognitively, the way that we are
It
learning
really
and
is. So
processing
we can,
information.
yeah, so even if we then add Bloom's taxonomy to that, it really fits in. So Bloom talks about that just basic learning. We're just getting information or definition, and we're not really connecting it to anything until we start to go up into the higher centers of creativity, comes from that sacral center. We're beginning to integrate it in our heart center. We're beginning to synthesize and innovate and create something new in our higher centers. So all of that higher order thinking comes from that ability to apply, to integrate, to innovate, and assimilate all of that knowledge, all of those just not just, but that basic information that we take in through our senses, through our knowing what we're bringing in, not only a memorization. So when a child is taught to just rotely memorize something, it's not integrated. It doesn't hold that same place of richness and like a tapestry that's woven together into a really rich pattern. It's more surface. It's like, what does this information mean to me? And it only means something to me, the child, when I start applying it to my life or
Mm,
create something with it.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Exactly. Thank you. I love that because it's so important to be sharing or to be using all of us, the holistic aspect. And I just love that you were already already on your computer researching and experimenting and exploring all those years ago, and your paper on it and everything. It's really remarkable. That's why I wanted to put it on the podcast because it's
mm,
yeah, it's definitely work that we're still doing now, and we're still even continuing with that. It really
mhm,
fascinates me. And I feel like that's definitely a key of shifting education is exploring more of the higher consciousness, because it's been the other way
yeah,
around, starting with the lower, the lower
yeah.
consciousness. Now there's all this information in the subconscious, and it's like almost this hidden superpower of an ease of learning, like almost effortless learning that we can tap into in some way.
Yeah, and I really want to make clear that I'm in no way saying that we're following the step-by-step
No.
ladder and climbing. That yes, there's access to information all around us, and to be able to tap into that so that we're not just solely focused on one way of learning.
Yeah, yeah. I think in our book you say it's like a spiraling effect. That really it really made sense to me when you described it that way. So
Mm-hmm. Good,
yeah.
thank
I wanted to ask you something else because I've seen you sharing this Way of the Teacher course, and I'm kind of fascinated about this. I'd like to know what it is exactly. Could you share with me?
Yeah, so again, the medicine wheel comes into play, and the whole course is called the Compassionate Leadership series. So it's the compassionate leadership, and it's following four archetypes or the four directions on the medicine wheel. So as the seasons turn, and we go from one time of the year to the next, we have different aspects as archetypes that are influencing that particular direction. So the way of the teacher is in the autumn, is the West, represents the West.
Ah,
And that's, yeah, honoring, all that. Well, it's also the sea, the ocean, and all the mysteries of life. So what has taught us from our deepest ancestral roots. So it's really bringing all of that to mind. And that the teacher isn't only the one who's disseminating information, sending it out, that we are a teacher learner all in one. So it really takes us on a deep spiral journey of all the places that we have met our teachers and that we have been teachers, and allowing us to continue that process of teaching and learning and immersing and expanding into the knowledge that's already there. So all of that wealth of mystery is available to us, and to open to the access to access it. So then we move from teacher. Coming up at winter solstice is going to be the way of the warrior again.
oh,
And then the east is the way of the visionary, and the south is the way of the healer.
oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That's
I just dive
all needed in
into all
education.
those aspects. Mhm.
Yeah, all those aspects I feel is all part of education now anyway, right? Like we need to be, heal ourselves so we can teach our children, teach, everybody from that beautiful place. We can lead as visionaries with new things in education. And then the warrior archetype, what is that one exactly? Is that more like strength, or what is the warrior?
That is strength and resilience, and all the challenges that we face. How do we stand strong in our values? Wow, has that come up around the world in our political systems and our leadership in every organizational aspect? So we're, standing strong for our values and being able to speak from that throat chakra. It's really also about opening up to say what's the truth. How do we stand in our truth? And I incorporate yoga into this because I'm also a yoga teacher.
Wow.
So it's that way of the warrior is warrior one, is where we stand strong in our values and know what those are. And we're in that alignment. From that alignment, we can go to warrior two, where we then begin to express that out into the world and take action. And warrior three, and the dancing warrior, we have celebration for that, and enjoy, even some exhilaration and fun in being able to really express fully who you are in the world from your uniqueness.
Thank
And
you
that's
for
your
sharing.
strength. Warrior strength is your uniqueness.
Oh, I love that. It's beautiful. Yeah, I really think this course is definitely like needed and necessary. It sounds amazing, like it's covering, holistically every aspect. I love that it's linking with the elements and it's linking with the archetypes, and that it's got a like a set program. So it's like a wheel. It's really fascinating. It's definitely education on all levels, I feel. So
It is, and it's one of my favorite coaching and teaching courses. Yeah.
yeah, wow. So before we finish today, I know I've asked you this question probably several times, but just for anybody who's listening and maybe it's changed, who knows? Because visions are continuously upgrading and changing. What's your vision for a new paradigm of education?
Oh, wow. Just that we continue to grow together collectively and take this ascension that's happening. And we were talking before we came on officially about collapsing these old timelines, these old paradigms. And once we collapse them, I've made that mistake too, thinking, oh, okay, now it's gone, it's done, I collapsed it, and I'm moving on. to a new day. And oh my gosh, that's going to come in at some point again to the new day. So to have that awareness of the old timelines and to continuously grow and change and not having to know where it's going, but know that it's expanding, it's ascending. We are all ascending, and we're in that place of higher consciousness.
Thank
So
you.
I would say cosmic consciousness is my vision.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, mine too. You can't really
Yeah.
go beyond cosmic consciousness.
No.
Like, well, if we just keep rising and we just keep going and we just keep going, and it's going to take us to that place that's
Just
the highest
yeah,
good.
and just whatever we can do to expand into love, more and more and more love with limits and some boundaries. So today I'm actually putting together a little talk for a live on the importance of boundaries, but making a distinction that the boundaries are not limits. And I know I said limits, that we, change our language in some way to reflect this expansion and reflect the vision without knowing that we're limitless, yet also knowing how to use the boundaries to protect that sacred space.
Mm, yes, yes. Yeah, that takes precision. So that's really, yeah, that's a really beautiful gift and tool to share to people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. I'll have to come and listen. So before we finish today, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, how do they find you, Dr. Janet?
Well, I do have a website, growingthroughchanges.com, and there will be a link there that you can schedule a time to just chat, have a coffee chat with me. And I love that, especially this time of year, maybe um, a pumpkin latte or what do we like? Some hot cider, hot cocoa, a cacao chat, all of those things. So I've recently also integrated cacao work into the work that I do, just the ceremony, bringing in the richness of ceremony and ritual, that we honor these plants that are around us on the earth and preserve them and utilize them for what their gift is to us. So I can be reached that way. I'm on Instagram at I am growing through changes or leading through changes, or reach out to Monique and she can contact me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Um,
Sorry.
I was just going to add Facebook and Janet Ver, Ver, fine, Fine.
Beautiful. No, I just had this vision of all these families learning from you or your sacred secrets. Like you should share that out. It's so amazing, like this cacao ceremonies and everything that you've got kind of tucked away there, just bringing it all out. I know that you share so much to the world anyway, as it is, but just I could imagine it with the little ones as well as the big ones, all together. So I think that would
Yeah,
be really cool rather than the separation. Like we do a lot of work on us, but to just have them all bouncing around at the same moment would be so
right.
cool.
Yeah. So many years that happened. The women would get together and have the circles and the bonfires, and the kids were just doing their thing, running around. And as they got older, my kids would say, "Mother, you have to stop having these bonfires. My friends don't understand what you're doing." So I had to go into hiding again. But
Wow, amazing.
yes, as families, having these ceremonies whenever possible.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
really inspired me as well. Like that, and then bringing that whatever you're learning in the home, you can bring into education. And a lot of the people that are listening do a lot of homeschool education and things anyway. It's not this podcast is for everybody, but I know that they could bring these elements in as well. So thank you so much for
Oh, yeah, thank you. And there were many years when I started that homeschooling movement here in Arizona and went to the Capitol and, tried to bring it to the legislature and put it into some kind of a law. And it was way before you could buy, you go online and buy a curriculum. Well, we didn't have that then. So I did curriculum development for homeschooling families. I would go into the homes and sit with them and take notes and see exactly what did they need. And each curriculum was individualized for that family.
Yeah.
So that was a nice contribution that came to mind since I've been here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because a lot of when people are first starting out, there's always that first stepping stone of, well, what do I do? And yeah, it's going to people like yourself or other people who are wanting to guide in this way. It's really, really, yeah, really helpful. And in the end, everybody will find their way, but it's that first step that's always, yeah, it's always helpful for that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for
For this
connecting
time.
again on our beautiful podcast, A New Paradigm of Education and our vision for the world. And everybody who's out there listening, we thank you so much for tuning in and also being part of this co-creation today of this space that we've created energetically within the world. So namaste, everybody.
Namaste. Thank you.